Okay, so we're gonna hit the group with another abusive tow authority story. We're gonna cover in this show. We're gonna cover a particular state and a non-consensual tow. This is going to be a real life story where we walk through what happened, what the reduction was, what the original bill came in, what tactics were used to try to take advantage of the client. And then we want to go into some nuances of the state and make sure that everybody kind of understands what's going on in each state. So if they land in that state, they're better equipped and they know what to do. So Dan Olivieri here, one of the senior partners at Morgan Cohen Bach, one of the founders of the Abusive Tow Authority. Jamie Rhines is the director of the Abusive Tow Authority, runs the show, and he has grabbed one of our mediations and brought it to the table so we can walk through and dissect what exactly occurred. Again, the point of the show, guys, is to give you content, education, and information that's going to better equip you when you're dealing with a non-consensual tow or an abusive tow situation. The reality of the scenario is that tow companies have an unfair advantage against the insurance industry, have an unfair advantage against the transportation industry because they're just better prepared for these scenarios. They know how to build in the inflation. They know how to get you to pay for this inflated bill. And unfortunately, when it comes to a claim, everybody on the other side of the court is really scrambling. So again, they have that unfair advantage. And the best way to solve this, the best way to reduce these bills, reduce the exposure, is to be educated, to understand how to deal with the scenarios so that you could protect yourself and you can negotiate intelligently. So Jamie Rhines, let's go ahead and start with the state that we're talking about. What state did this tow occur in?
Okay, so the state is Illinois.
Okay. So we're going to be in Illinois today. All right. So what did the bill come in as?
So the bill came in at $33,400.
Okay, $33,400.
That's correct.
Okay. And what was the reduction amount?
We got the bill reduced to $21,950 for an $11,450 reduction.
$11,450 reduction. Okay, so let's start off with what was the accident, what happened, what occurred, what did this accident look like?
Okay, so it was an ordinary accident, right? Driver in a personal vehicle actually ran into a commercial vehicle truck driver who became our client. It was one where there was a small fuel spill. The fuel spill was by some drains, and the only thing that needed to happen was environmental cleanup. There was no cargo, so it was an empty trailer, and then the tow company needed to clear the area, hook up the equipment, and then tow it back to a repair facility that the company's owner had requested that the tow company do.
Okay, got it. So, what were the point of inflations on this? I mean, where did you find the issues? The build-in from where you got the 11.4 reduced at?
Everything. So, just a quick breakdown on how Illinois works. It's
Okay.
another unregulated state. Most oftentimes, the invoicing, especially there's some repeat offenders. A couple of companies, we've had one come through our office, I believe 7 times already. And that company has a habit of changing its name and showing up under another name. So the possibilities are endless to the actual amount of times that we've had to deal with them.
Right.
But they do not normally put hours. They'll just put what service they did and a price. Everything's made up. It's probably one of the worst states with regards to not having any established rates for labor, for equipment, for storage. It's all fly by the seat of the pants. You have some really dirty tow companies that are filthy in how they invoice. very different as far as how they go about solicitation of the tow to begin with. So Illinois is a very difficult state to navigate.
Got it.
When you're talking about inflation, I know that we were successful with the reduction that we had,
Hmm.
but there's no way to really even determine if that was reasonable for the work that was done.
Got it. Because the hours and because there's not enough detail in the invoice.
There's not enough detail in the invoice. In this particular situation, we had conflicting stories between the tow company, the authorities, and the client.
Right.
So that makes it more difficult to track down and actually agree on a rate where we know it's matter of fact and relative to the work that was done in this circumstance. And in many in Illinois, they just inflate the bill to a point where it becomes ridiculous for what was done.
Right. So let's go into really quick. Let's jump into. You were saying that they had some unique ways to solicit the non-consensual tow or the tow in general. How
Yeah.
do they do that?
Okay. So they listen to police scanners.
Okay.
There's a couple companies, we've caught them on several occasions, where there's low-level bridges in Illinois. Truck drivers hit them often enough that they'll just park in their free time, where they can witness the driver run into the bridge. They approach the driver. Usually it's somebody that states that they have a friend, a family member, somebody that they know owns a tow company. So the driver of the tow truck themselves doesn't approach the commercial vehicle owner. And
So it's literally someone working for the tow company that pretends to be a bystander,
correct.
and then they basically walk up and they pretend like they witnessed it, and they go, "Hey, I got a friend that's a tow company. Do you want me to just call him and help you out?"
Right. They're literally like 2 blocks away. I'll make one phone call, or you want the phone number, you can give
Yeah,
them a
yeah.
call. They're real reasonable with their rates. They probably get this done for a couple $1,000s to be on your way.
Right. So why do they go that far? Why don't they just park a tow company there? Why don't they just
Because
park a truck up there? What's the reason?
technically speaking, it's illegal in the state of Illinois to solicit a tow.
Got it. Okay, so
But
it's
there's also avenues in how they handle this that we're going to get into the discussion with, right, to avoid it becoming a scenario where you can prove it was solicited.
right, which is what you're seeing as a sign of someone just walking up and going, "Hey, my buddy owns a tow company. Let me help you out."
Correct.
Right. Okay. So let's touch really quick on when you said that the bill had no hours, right? So you said like it didn't have any hours; it's just telling you what they did. So can you walk through a couple? Obviously, we don't want to show the bill because we're still, it's a mediation we just did, and I'm sure that I'm sure that during the mediation we gave releases. But can you walk me through the line items, what it actually looks like on a line item? So what are some of the details, or what are some of the services that they listed on the line items through the itemized bill without the hours?
Right. So they'll just write down labor for the cleanup, 2,995.
Got it.
Environmental street cleaning, 2,995. In this particular situation, amazingly enough, many of the line items had the exact same dollar amount, even though they have nothing to do with one another, right?
It's like
Labor.
they're like, I watched a video one time that says things that have sevens and fives are more believable. So let me just put a 7 and a 5 or a 9 on every number, and then they just use the same exact number across the board.
Correct. So, and in this one, there was 8 line items, and out of the 8 line items, it was 3 numbers in particular that showed up every time. It was 29,995,
Hmm.
14,875, and I think the other one was 995.
Right, right, right.
Right, and
Okay.
that's all the 3 charges. They just occurred multiple times. under different line items for different purposes.
So how did our client handle the situation? Did they try to negotiate it beforehand? Did they send it to us directly? What kind of involvement did the client do? What did the client do internally to try to resolve this before it came to us?
Okay, so this is where we get into the educational value for our clients, and something that they need to pause this particular section and listen to over and over again. If you're educating your drivers, if you're educating your clients that you insure, especially smaller operations, do not let anyone sign anything that's blank. So I'm going to wrap this back around to the solicitation.
Okay.
The driver in this circumstance, A, signed a blank invoice, which is why nothing was necessary as far as having hourly rates and man hours
Just
and
like
everything
signing
else.
a blank check. Just like signing a blank check. Just go ahead and fill in the numbers for me, man. I got you.
Right. And they had told them $3,000 or $4,000. It ended up being
Now,
$33,000.
something tells me that they would say that probably not on a recorded line, or at least a line that they're not going to produce the recording, or they did
No,
it in person, and it was a scenario where there's no contract to that fact.
not only was there no contract, but at neither point when the driver was signing the invoice, did they write in that invoice the amount that they were telling the driver it was going to be charged to
Right.
do the work that they were doing. So the
So
driver signed a blank.
if there's any red flag, right?
That's it.
We're going to do it for $4,000. Here's a blank invoice. We're not going to put $4,000 in there because I don't got a pen, but you have a pen, but it's not my pen. So I'm not going to put the 4,000 in there
Yep,
until I get back to the office to use my pen because I really like my pen.
exactly. And my pen tends to total a lot higher amounts than
Yeah,
what
yeah,
my mouth
yeah, yeah. By the
speaks.
time I got to my pen, the bill turned into 40 grand. Sorry.
And then on top of that, underneath the signature, um, with the asterisk, is that this tow was not solicited.
And it says that under. Now, did we get confirmation on the solicitation how did they solicit this one? Did they do it blatantly, or did they use the guy showing up
The
saying,
the
I can help you?
guy showed up and said his buddy owned a tow company. It's just a couple blocks down the street.
And so we have like a live scenario of this solicitation. And then how did you find that piece of information up during the mediation?
So as I was saying, this the client in this case was very emotional.
Got it.
They were under the impression it was going to be X amount, and then it ended up being 100 times the amount that they thought it was going to be. And the tow was solicited, but after the signature, they realized that they can't make that claim, right? Because it's their signature stating it's an unsolicited tow. And the tow company was also supposed to tow it to their repair shop, or I believe a friend of theirs who owned a repair shop, to be able to do the work on the tractor and trailer. And the tow company decided that they were going to tow it to their tow yard and impound the tractor and trailer so that they could get the invoice paid.
Mm. So they take it. So just to run that back. So rather than actually taking it to the repair shop like agreed upon, they know that if they send it to the repair shop, that's not going to help them get the invoice paid. And especially since they know that they told them $4,000, they inflated the invoice now to $33,000. They probably have figured out that the person's not going to be too happy with that. So we're going to just take a little detour. We're going to drop it into our yard. We're going to lock it up. We're going to give them the bill, and then if they pay the bill, then we'll take it to the repair shop.
That would sound about right.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to do it. If you're a bad guy, that's what I would do.
We've actually, not in this circumstance, but we've had a few different repeat offenders that are known for approaching our clients and trying to cut a deal. If you allow us to submit this to your insurance company, we'll give you $1,000 or cover your deductible. We've heard it.
Right.
We've heard it all from Illinois. And here's the bad part, and the reason I said to rewind the portion where we're talking about the blank invoices, because in Illinois. There's no regulations, and the only party that has any control with regards to the tow company is the Illinois Commerce Commission. And
Right.
unfortunately enough for them, all they can do is levy a fine, and they can't even enforce payment of that fine when they send it out.
Wow.
So,
So yeah, I want to go back really quick, Jamie, because you hit on something it's probably a sore spot for some adjusters, and I'm sure there's a lot of adjusters, a lot of insurance professionals that are watching this that don't actually, they couldn't even imagine the tow company doing this, but that is actually a thing. Tow companies going to the insured and getting the insured to go in cahoots with them in basically submitting the inflated bill. See, a lot of tow companies understand that, you know, as an adjuster or an insurance professional, or insurance company in general, you're really in a tough spot. So what they do is they try to create as many leverage points as possible, knowing that, number one, if the payment that they're asking you for is less than a certain amount, most adjusters have authority to just stroke the check. And if they can get it to the insurance company and they can create enough leverage, that check's going to get cut really fast. So just be mindful that it might be a scenario where you have an insured that's in Illinois, like in this scenario, and this isn't just Illinois, guys. This happens in different states, right? There's other states out there where tow companies see the benefit of getting the insured to participate in basically screwing over the insurance company. So this is something that you got to be paying attention to. This is something that you want to watch. And one of the ways to watch it is look at any inconsistencies in the insured. Sometimes, you're talking to an insured starts, bouncing around. You start getting a weird feeling that they're lying, or maybe the stories don't line up with the tow company. That those are all going to be your indicators. But yeah, but I just wanted to point
and
that one out, Jamie, because that's a good one, and I'm glad that you're able to throw that out
And
there.
you should be mindful, because we just had one a couple months back, and I don't want to veer off of this story too much, but it was a situation in Virginia where the tow company released the equipment, and tow companies don't do that. And then the insured was actually trying to pressure our client to pay the tow company, which had a rate at 72 cents a pound, which is outrageous for a recovery.
Right.
And it turns out that it was something similar. The insured and the tow company had a very good working relationship
Yep.
outside of that recovery. And the insured was trying to pressure our client into paying this outrageous invoice because that was a buddy of his.
Right.
And
Right.
the thing that led our team to uncovering this was the fact that, well, hold on, no tow company ever releases, tractor trailer and cargo as a favor. And obviously we have the advantage of seeing the same tow companies come in our office over and over again. And that was not that tow company's MO.
Yeah, right. So all of a sudden, yeah, and I think a lot of that comes into, I think people have the general misconception that, it's an insurance company, right? So insurance companies have millions and millions and millions of dollars. So who cares? They could pay the bill. I mean, well, what does it matter? And a lot of times, I think the insureds that participate in these type of activities, they don't actually think about the repercussions of this. They don't think about the fact that when they are inflating, helping with inflation, when they're screwing over the insurance company, it comes back full circle, and they end up paying higher premiums. It becomes a lot. There's much bigger issues. And when we talk to carriers, I mean, how many times have we talked to a carrier and they're sitting there complaining about how high the insurance premiums are, how ridiculous it is, right? How they don't cut them a break and all these different things. Well, this type of behavior is what screws it up for everybody.
Yeah, because it's dollars and cents.
Right. Right. So, okay. So when the client was talking to them, so did the client initially try to negotiate with the tow company, or did they end up going right back to us? Like, you may have answered that, but I just want to make sure that I got that.
No, they initially tried to negotiate with the tow company. In this circumstance, like I said, our client was very emotional, so they tried to negotiate with the tow company on their own. There was actually a couple hiccups in our mediation because the client was continuing to try to deal with the tow company because they were so upset over the circumstances. And so we had to make them aware of the fact that, reaching out to the tow company to get into shouting matches isn't going to help anybody out at this point in time. And believe it or not, during this mediation, we actually had 2 other mediations very similar in circumstances happening in the state of Illinois at the same time. So we were able to let them know, like, look, this happens to everybody. You understand now what needs to happen, and you don't sign a blank tow invoice. And if they did solicit the invoice, then you don't sign anything waiving your rights to press charges if it was solicited. And then you let us go in, get the best reduction that we can, and you move on from that knowing that you learned something and that you know how to prevent it in the future.
Yeah, and the going back into the shouting matches and the negotiation, guys, anybody that's listening to this, anybody that's watching, you know, I've hardly ever seen a negotiation, you know, end up in a positive light when people are sitting there screaming, yelling at each other. The reality of the situation is that if you're upset, if you're emotional about the scenario, I know this happens for a lot of times carrier, it happens for, I've seen adjusters get really upset. It's almost better right there at that moment to reach out to our office and have us jump in, because if you're emotional about it, there's going to be buttons that are going to be pushed. You might say something that you regret saying. You might create emotions in the tow company. I've seen situations where an adjuster reaches out to a tow company, gets into a screaming match. The tow company literally tries to hold on to the truck, trailer, and cargo off of principle, out of straight pride. They're just upset. They're pissed that the person talked to them that way, and no matter what happens, they stay completely unreasonable through the entire negotiation. And also, ultimately, what that does is that hikes up the final number. It basically puts you in a situation where, rather than getting the numbers that make sense, now you have somebody that's upset and they're trying to prove a point. And when you get people in this position of emotion, right? Emotion is never, ever, ever where you want someone in a negotiation. You always want to be able to move them to a logical state. And then the last thing is when you're emotional like that and you start getting into a pissing match with the client, you start, or with the tow company, you're yelling at them, cursing at them, doing all that crap. What ends up happening is oftentimes you demonstrate through that conversation to the tow company that you have no real idea why you're contesting the bill, other than the bill looks too high. And if a tow company feels you're just contesting the bill for shits and giggles, or that you're contesting the bill but you don't quite know where the points of inflation are, you just feel it's high, they're gonna try to capitalize on that all day. And that's why Jamie, part of his team and part of his unit is the analyst team, because their job is to basically go through the tow, look at the situation, look at what happened, reconstruct the bill, figure out the exact points of inflation, then come from an informed position to the tow company saying, hey, these are the exact issues that we have. And then from there, start having that conversation and that dialogue. The tow companies oftentimes will concede, especially if they know that they're inflating the damn bill, right? I mean, these guys are not confused about the fact that the bill's bullshit, right? So what ends up happening is, once they know that and you know exactly where the bill's screwed up, they're more prone to going, all right, you got me, jigs up, and then they start negotiating, having a conversation. But the screaming and yelling and all that is never going to work, no matter how emotional you are. You have a level head, and if you don't call our office to use us, at least have a level head for yourself, so you can think through the negotiation, get the best possible results.
And I like to associate it to the same kind of scenarios that I have with my children, right? My children do something, they know they're about to get into trouble, and they're going to lie.
Yep.
And they're going to lie, and they're going to deny, and they're going to deny. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's a turning point when they realize dad really knows the truth.
Yep.
Okay. And then I have to make a decision. Do I keep lying and get into some real trouble?
Right.
Or do I actually say, Dad, you know what? That's what I did. And I take my lumps and I move on. And the same thing holds true with tow companies. Like you said, they know they're lying. They know they inflated the bill. But if you don't have anything to prove it, if you can't put it together and let them know this is what you found, then they're just going to deny and say the bill is what it is. That's the value of the work that we did. So it is very important when you're going to get into mediation, or if you're going to dispute anything with the tow company, that you have everything in line before you even make that initial phone call. Because if you're just disputing the price, then they're going to tell you all day that's what they needed to do to safely recover that equipment, and you owe the money.
And we'll actually help you with this for free, guys. So anybody that's watching this, keep in mind, if you go to the abusivetowauthority.com, there's a button on that website that allows you to submit a bill that you would like audited. So we will actually look at the bill for you. We'll actually give you our resources. We'll allow you to utilize our tow analyst team. Our tow analyst team will review the bill. They'll evaluate the points of inflation. They'll let you know if the bill's inflated or not inflated, so that way you can go into that negotiation with confidence. And then you're at least you're not sounding like you're just guessing, right? And remember, the bill being high, like a large dollar amount, 40 grand, 50 grand, 80 grand, 90 grand, 150 grand, whatever the amount is not an indication of inflation, guys. And I think a lot of people have this gut feeling type stuff where they'll take a bill that's $25,000, $30,000. They'll pay that bill all day long. A lot of adjusters that will pay a $25,000 bill all day long. And then if they get a bill that's $100,000, they automatically contest it because the amount is too high, right? Where in reality, you might find that $100,000 bill under the right circumstances is actually the appropriate amount for the tow, and the $20,000 bill has a 70% inflation on it. So just understand that dollar amount is not indication of inflation. What is an indication of inflation is basically what the standard rates are, what the regulatory body says the rate should be, what the competitive average is on the dollar amount, what the state laws and regulations say about the way that the tow companies are allowed to bill. All of that really determines what we call as fair. And again, fair to us is not necessarily fair to the tow company, but fair according to law and fair according to our clients. And when I say our clients, I mean really fair as in fair, right? Because one thing that we also don't get into is we don't get into strong arming tow companies. If the bill's legit, we're going to tell you the bill's legit. So if you hit our audit team, if we think that the bill is legit, we're going to let you know the bill's legit. We don't want to get in the habit of being bad guys, right? While we're fighting this fight. All right, So what was, when you reached out to the tow company and you delivered this to them and they knew that we were involved, what type of response were we getting on this?
Well, they're used to our response.
Right.
So they immediately began to work with us.
Got it.
But that's because we've never went to the tow company without all the information that we needed. So the only reason why at the end of the day we weren't able to determine whether the 21,000 was completely accurate or not just had to do with discrepancies in hours. But when we let the tow company know this is where we stood, we're going to compromise because you're stating that you were out there 4 hours, the officer on the scene was only out there for an hour, and our client saying that it was an hour and a half out there to 2 hours max. Okay, so we're going to come to something that's reasonable for all parties because there was no absolute way to verify the information in each and every party involved, and that's including the fire department and DOT, who were all out there for periods of time, but Illinois is just too busy of a place for any one department to see the recovery all the way to fruition. So
Right.
it was a situation, like I said, the reduction was good. We were confident that we got the best reduction for our client, which is the most important thing. And the circumstances are the circumstances. So at the end of the day, we trained the driver so that he'll never find himself in that situation again. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to prevent that if they ever are involved in an incident in the Illinois area again.
How many days did this reduction take?
It took 3.
3 days. So in 3 days, we were able to get it down over a third of a reduction. Is there anything that you would say out there that is there anything that you would tell these our audience about Illinois, besides the fact that it's lightly regulated and some of the things? Is there anything else that they should know about Illinois tow?
Well, so when you're dealing with lightly or unregulated, or in this circumstance, a place where all they have to worry about is a fine that they're never going to have to pay, is the tow company is going to take it one step further. And the tow company has all the experience in that area and knows what they can and can't do and how to avoid becoming such an issue that maybe the state goes outside of the box to address it with them.
Right.
And you have to understand that. And that's one of the issues that everybody has when you're dealing with commercial driving, because most of the time they occur in states that the driver's unfamiliar with, does not reside, doesn't understand the regulations. So that being said, the tow company is already one step ahead of you before you even got into the accident.
Right.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
so I was just gonna, I guess my thought is on that is to realize if they agree on a price, if they agree to take it to your shop or your warehouse or to the repair facility, whatever they agree on, you need to have them put that in writing, because they're going to expect you to put your signature down on the piece of paper when you're agreeing to have them do the work.
Right.
So it would behoove you to do the same thing, and anything that they're telling you, you have that put in writing before you even put your pen to paper.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap. I think that covers covers Illinois, gives us some good context here. I think we learned a lot on this one. So guys, as you guys know, if you have any questions about a tow, hit our free hotline. It's free. It costs you nothing. We're not going to ask you for any obligation. We're not going to ask you to submit the tow bill with us. What we want to do is basically give you the details you need to protect yourself. So reach out to us. We'll give you that information. That's abusivetowauthority.com. Of course, if you want to submit a claim for us to handle, you could submit it right there on that website. There's also a bunch of education tabs. And if you want more information on our brochures, how we charge, our process, all of that, you can go ahead and click our brochure link, and we'll fire a brochure off to your email, and you'll have that. Most important thing, guys, is keep our information handy. If you run into a problem, please do not hesitate. We got your back. Jamie, you got anything else you want to cover in closing?
Nah, I think just keep listening to our videos. Hopefully you'll find something that educates you or that you can use to educate your clients on each and every one. And I really implore everybody to do their due diligence when it comes to taking care of that, whether that's by sending it over to us to have my team analyze so that they know that they're paying the correct amount for the work that was done, or if that's on their end and taking the time to break it down and to get a better understanding before they just stroke a pen and cut a check.
Right. Okay, perfect. All right. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And thanks for your time again. And everybody that's watching, just stay tuned. We're going to break down every single state. We're going to continue to give you guys real life tow situations that you can utilize. And don't forget to go to our YouTube page if you're looking for a particular state. If you have a problem in this particular state, well, again, we're shooting these based on state. We're naming them based on state. You can go to YouTube. You can look at some of our old videos or some of the videos that we've already shot on a particular state. Get yourself some education, some information, and then you can put yourself in a better position to contest the problems that you have. So with that being said, everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you at the finish line.